Okay, so I haven't done one of these for a few days, but mainly because I didn't want to just do them to be doing them. I wanted to do them when I really felt like God was telling me to talk about something. And there's a couple in my head. I recorded one earlier and then I realized like that has way too much in it. So I'm going to break them down. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is hypocrisy. And I've talked a little bit about this before, but with the conventions, there's just been a lot that came out this last couple of weeks. So whether you're a Democrat or not, if you watch the Democratic convention, the one thing that you can say unequivocally was they did not talk about the rioting and the looting in the streets. Not a single mention of all the violence, okay? And for months, they've been playing them off as peaceful protests, mainly peaceful. They're mostly peaceful. There are a few people choosing to make lawless decisions. And the one thing you can say about the Republicans convention, you know, again, whether you like them or not, is they did talk about it. They talked about the fact that there needed to be law and order, that these riots and looting had to stop, that the violence had to stop, right? So evidently in the polling, it has gotten out that, hey, guess what? Normal American people don't like it when you tear their crap up and they're afraid for their lives. So the Democrats, Don Lemon and Cuomo, were like, oh, hey, we have to denounce the violence because it's starting to show up in the polls. Like, first of all, why does it take for it to show up in the polls for you to get out there and say violence is wrong? It's wrong, right? It is not okay to go and destroy businesses. And I know people will say, like, oh, well, they're upset because of what's happening. That's a whole nother topic, which I'm going to talk about, but it doesn't matter, right? You can be upset. There's a reason that I go and I kickbox. Like, I go and I hit bags, right? That's how I take up my aggression. Go and do something that is useful, that is helpful. Go do something in your community to build it up, not to tear it down, because the people's businesses that you're destroying, the people's lives that you're destroying have nothing to do with what you're angry about. And that senseless violence needs to stop. So applause to the Democrats for now coming out about it 3-4 months later, but where have you been for the last 3 or 4 months? Okay, but here's where the hypocrisy comes in. So the first thing is Joe Biden finally comes out of his basement to denounce the violence. And he says that Trump has done nothing to condemn the violence. Now, I don't know. I know he's been living in his basement. But unless you've been living under a rock, you can't say that he has done nothing to condemn the violence, because he has come out against it. In fact, when he came out against it, people were like, oh, he's calling all the peaceful protesters violent acts. No, he wasn't. He made that very clear in the beginning. Like, he was totally supportive of peaceful protests. He was totally not supportive of rioting and looting. But the left media called him out and said, no, they're peaceful protests and he's blowing this out of proportion, right? So this has been the thing from the left since it started. Now, all of a sudden, they're saying he's done nothing to condemn the violence. He has come out multiple times. At the Republican National Convention, he came out and said the Republican Party denounced violence. So to say that he has done nothing to condemn the violence is a flat out lie. And that ticks me off when you have people who are in power coming out and saying flat out lies, because unfortunately there are people who are going to believe it, right? There are people who don't watch Fox News or who don't turn on the radio or who only listen to one channel, and they're going to believe it, and that's not okay. You're in power, sir. You need to be using your power to speak the truth, right? And saying that Donald Trump has done nothing is not the truth. Now, that does not mean you have to agree with everything Donald Trump does, but you cannot say he hasn't done anything to condone or to condemn the violence, right? He has offered national troops. Democratic mayors and governors have refused. They have said that if he comes, he's just going to make it worse because his very presence like fuels this racial hatred. Okay, that is another thing that is completely ridiculous. You can hate the man, that's fine, right? I mean, most of you don't know him personally. I don't know him personally, so I don't hate him personally. Do I hate some of the things he says? Absolutely. But Ben Shapiro kind of nailed it. You know, I don't know him, so maybe he really is. I don't think Trump is really a racist, though. I think Trump doesn't like people who don't like Trump. And so, yes, he says things that he shouldn't say. And yes, he should come out and apologize. And yes, he should attack the ideas and not the people. And I think he's getting better at it. Is he perfect? No. But then again, you know, like Jesus said, those of you who are innocent, you can throw the first stones. I'm not going to throw stones at him because I've said things in the past that I regretted, right? Now, the difference is I usually apologize for them, especially if I know that I've hurt people or things have changed. But regardless, you can totally disagree with a lot of the things he has said, because he has said some very hurtful things. He has said some things that can be misconstrued. But if you look at his actions, right, he has done very important things to try and quell the violence, okay? He has reached out to a lot of these people. He has supported the police. And Tyrus said it really well on the Greg Gutfeld show. And I don't really like Greg Gutfeld. He drives me crazy. But Tyrus said a couple things. I'm going to talk about the other one in another video. But he said that it's a really hard position when you have, and Tyrus is a black man in case you're not aware, but he said it's a really hard position when you're like, yes, I don't want to see black people dying, but I also support the police. And, you know, sometimes they make bad decisions too. Okay, that's a whole other topic. We're going to talk about that, but kind of keep that in mind with what's happening with President Trump. So hypocrisy. It really bugs me that the Democrats are coming out now and saying that Trump is trying to fan the flames, which is absolutely not true. He is trying to bring law and order back. He has been trying since these things started in April or March or whenever they started. It's just been too long. I can't even wrap my head around the ridiculousness. Okay. So to say that he's done nothing is completely ridiculous. Secondly, they're blaming this whole like racial thing on Trump. Now, yes, some of his tweets probably have stirred up animosity. That is absolutely, I'm not going to deny that. Right. But again, this is what I talked about before. Like his words can't hurt you unless you let them. He's not said anything personally to any of these people who are going out and creating this violence. Okay. If Elizabeth Warren wanted to go out and like hit something because Trump calls her names, that would be a totally different story. I'm still not going to agree with violence, but it would at least be a different story because he has physically like attacked her with his words. But these other people who are starting these riots, Trump has not done that. So you can't claim that he is inciting this violence. But beyond that, the people on the left, there were several people, newscasters on the left, who came out in the last couple of days and they were mocking the black people who stood up at the Republican National Convention. They were calling them minstrels, like they were little players in a little play. Stephen Colbert called it like a racial spelling bee. Like that is what is fueling the racial hatred in this world. Not the fact that Trump exists, not the fact that he is president, not the fact that there are a lot of people who also want to make America great or who believe America is great. That is not what is fueling this racial hatred. What is fueling this racial hatred is when you are calling people names because they don't believe what you believe. And that is a big problem, right? Like they may not agree with you politically. That does not give you the right to insult them. I don't care if they're black, white, Native American, Asian, whatever it is. It does not matter. You do not get to insult them or their entire race because they don't agree with your politics. And that is the biggest problem that is fueling this racial divide. What we need to come out and say, like unequivocally, is people are allowed to think differently. Look at that. God gave us the brain. You know what he wanted us to do with it? He wanted us to reason. He wanted us to rationalize. He wanted us to think, right? So stop attacking people who don't believe the same way you do. Try to sit down and have a discussion with them and try to see if there are some common ground, because you know what? I bet there are some common grounds that you could reach, right? And this is the problem with Congress too. They're just so busy calling names and throwing the blame at each other that nobody bothers to sit down and listen anymore. So we've got some time, right? This whole COVID creation disaster has given us lots and lots of time. I know we're all anxious and hyped up and scared and everybody's blaming everything else, but let's take a step back and use the brain that God gave us and let's actually think. And let's think empathetically, because calling people names, attacking people's character based on the color of their skin, based on their political affiliations, based on any of these things is not okay, right? It is totally okay to disagree with someone's ideas. It is not okay to call them names and belittle them because you don't agree with their ideas. That is the problem, and that is what needs to stop. When that stops happening, this country will start to heal. So prayers for that. Prayers that people will take a step back. They will stop and think before they speak, and think about, is what I'm going to say attacking someone's character or attacking the idea? Because that is a totally different thing. It is totally okay to disagree with someone's idea. It is totally not okay to attack someone's character because you disagree with their ideas. All right. Prayers for the nation, prayers for the president, prayers for election. Guys, it is important. So I pray peace to all of you. I pray that the Lord is watching down on us. Take a second think before you speak, and let's speak words that lift people up instead of tear people down.